So you were saying that when you were in prison, you found out there were Native American elders who found out what your birth records or some things about your birth records, and that's when you really came to know that you're a Native American for
Yes.
certain.
So when you go to prison, you go through. You have to be. What do you call that? Categorized. So you go talk with this person, and it's kind of like a counselor, but it's a guard, and they just basically place you where you need to be placed, or where they think you need to be placed. So you go in and they ask you a bunch of questions, and who are you? And the lady's looking at my sheet, and she right away says, "Well, you're definitely not Caucasian." And I was like, "Wow!" And so I started realizing. So when they housed me as another at first. But then they're looking at my record and they noticed in my middle name Little Bear. So they said, "You know what? We're going to house you as Native American." And so then they sent me from receiving back then, back in '85, was Vacaville. I was there for about 3 months, and then they sent me to San Quentin. That's where they housed me at. So when I got to San Quentin, my first cellie was a guy a couple years older than me. We just clowned for 6 months, laughed and joked around, and after he left, and then he got transferred, and then I got given another cellie. And this is when my eyes started opening up, and I started realizing that our native culture is so important. I was housed with an elder. He was about 50 something years old, and he
And you were in your 20s?
I was in my 20s, and he had me think and talk about my past. He wanted to know who I was. How did I become where I was? Why am I in prison? Basically, at the end of the day, was the question. And I really had to look at myself. And this elder had me look at myself inside. And then he brought me to Sweat Lodge, and that was amazing. The
You could
first
have a
time,
sweat lodge in the prison?
yes. So
Oh.
San Quentin has a beautiful sweat lodge, and even with a little foot pond. So
Can you tell us what a sweat lodge is?
a sweat lodge is a Native American church. So within our culture, we call it an inipe, and we go to sweat, to pray, to honor people who have passed, to honor newborn babies. Um, we sweat for many reasons, um, but it's our medicine and it's our go-to to the source. For me, it's the go-to to the source. You feel so close to the Creator when you're in the sweat lodge. Your prayers are answered. Your prayers are listened to. Um, you can let go of pain in the sweat lodge, and it stays in the fire. It stays in the rocks. Um, you come out of the sweat lodge feeling rejuvenated, almost reborn. It's amazing. It's the most amazing feeling that there is in our culture. Now I've heard that there's other ceremonies, Sundance, but I'm not all about that. I love the Inipe. I don't feel I'm strong enough to endure Sundance, but that's just me.
And so you experienced a sweat lodge for the first
For the
time in
first time I
prison
was in prison
with your elder cellmate.
with my elders and other elders and other warriors within San Quentin. Sweat Day was on a Saturday, and brothers from other parts of the prison would all come together, and we'd go to the yard, and we'd sing, we'd drum, and this is where I started learning my culture, songs that I've never ever heard of, and it was amazing, the power, the strength, um,
What was that like, Bear? For the
freedom.
first time to know who you were?
Oh, it was. I wanted to get the hell out of prison. I couldn't wait. I knew that I had a real life to live when I got out. When I went in, I was really confused, not knowing why I belong here. I mean, honestly, I hung with bikers before I went in. White dudes, basically. Some Latin brothers and some black brothers too, but basically white bros. And when I went in, I couldn't hang out with the bikers. That was for sure. That was put to me straight up the first day I was there. You need to be with your people. And that's when I started really understanding myself. You know, when I got out, I didn't go back to biking. I got a Harley, but I didn't go back to biking. I went powwowing, which is Native American gatherings. I was taken to a sweat lodge outside. I was honored to be able to cook for honoring of the elders. I've done that for the last 19 years. It's a ceremony out in Gilroy. It's not a powwow. It's a traditional gathering. No cameras, no videos, just a fire in people's eyes watching the bear dance. Powerful and amazing. But I've been able to cook for the Tenant Council and being part of the Tenant Council for the last 20 years. And I started going to Stanford Powwow, and that's where I met some of the brothers and sisters from the Tenant Council.
What is a tenant council?
Tenant Council is a Native American group in, well, we're not actually all from South Bay Area. We're actually all over the Bay Area now. Even the leaders moved out to the valley. So, but we're a council of Native, intertribal Native people that we honor. We do this gathering to lift up the elders and their stories and their life. This ceremony needs to be done, and without this ceremony, we won't be able to pass on the tradition. This ceremony is definitely a ceremony that teaches the youth, and not just the youth, but outsiders. We're open to everybody. We want people to be cultured. We want people to understand about the Native American, our history, our way, our life right now, and our vision is very important. Yeah.
Does it matter? Because I think you told me that when you were in prison, you still didn't know exactly which tribe you came from, right?
Yeah.
Does that matter when you're?
It didn't matter when I was in prison. The brothers that were in there, the elders and the spiritual advisors, they knew that I knew I was Native, and they knew that I had to find my people. It took, when I got out, honestly, I'm laughing. It took 32 years for me to find my people when I got out of prison. And I looked 32 years. Went to powwows, asked elders, how do you get DNA? How do you do this? How do you do that? And finally, when I was, in my 40s, my youngest daughter, we went to powwow, and she took off, and she's walking around the powwow asking elders who to talk to about finding out our DNA. And so my daughter brings this elder to me. Her name was Cher. And we were over at the honoring the elders gathering, and she brings this lady up. I'm cooking in the kitchen for all these people, and she brings this little lady up, and her name was Cher. And she goes, so you want to learn your DNA? I said, yeah. And I was like, wow. I looked at my daughter, and she starts laughing at me. I told you I'd find somebody. And so we sat down and had a serious conversation, and she basically ended up giving me an address called for fingerprint.com. And this is before 23andMe and the other DNA things. And I spent about $600, but this is how I got to find out that I was Native. And they had small traces of Navajo, Dene Navajo, Cherokee, Dog Rib from Wisconsin, Tlingit from Alaska is all in my bloodline. And then there was 39% that they didn't know what I was. As a joke, I was like, I knew I was Martian. But then now speed it up 10 years. And here we are basically 3 years ago, 20 years. Speed it up 20 years. Basically 3 years ago, one of my sons, for Christmas, I got everybody 23andMe, all my kids. And my daughter at that time, 10 years ago, she passed away 10 years ago. Basically 9 years ago is when I got all my kids the DNA. My daughter was looking, and when she passed, that stopped. So I thought, I'm going to get all my kids, and one of my children will pick up where Megan left off, and one of my sons did. And Travis actually found out through 23andMe, talking with, you get all kinds of cousins on 23andMe that are 10 generations. They don't even look like you. And so, but he talked to somebody and they said, hey, I think your auntie, your dad's auntie, is on Ancestry. So my son calls me immediately and tells me this. I'm at work. I hang up the phone. I order Ancestry. It comes the next day mail. You have to register on your phone. So I did that. A month later, it came back and I opened it up. It wasn't my auntie. It was my sister. And that blew me away.